Okay, so what we're going to do right now is I'm going to dissect these casting instructions because I have semantics when it comes to how my clients ended up turning in their tapes versus what casting asked for. So, first, I'll preface this like this. I was inside of a casting office, was trained, and you have casting directors. I would say the majority, because of the nature of what they do, is they have to have organization and they have to have proper punctuation and things like that. And so they don't ever want to send out an email, as it was told to me as I was trained. You don't ever want to send out an email that, isn't grammatically correct, yada, yada, yada. Whereas, me at the agency level, I'm typing very quickly on the fly. We're exchanging text messages, yada, yada, yada. We're not, drafting correspondence in proper English. And so when I see something like this, to me, here's what I'm seeing, and I want to do this breakdown so that you guys kind of understand. I will preface this as this: it may not be the end of the world to not do this exactly the way that I'm showing you based on the way they broke it down. But this breakdown to me would suggest this, and this is, something as simple as is what we're taught in law school, that how a comma, an improperly placed comma, can change the nature of a contract. So I know as artists, this doesn't, really mean much to you, but for those of you that really are looking to step your self tape game up and you're trying to figure out, okay, why am I not getting called back? What's going on here? A lot of the times it is your inability to follow directions. So let me go ahead and preface what's been going on and why I'm up at 6 a.m. trying to kick out all these tapes before our 10 a.m. deadline. Okay? Yes, the date is wrong. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. It's not Monday 444. Okay, so we had a situation where there was an open call for a show and we needed to submit in tapes in what I would say is 12 to 14 hours from the time we got the notification. So it's a very fast turnaround, but at the same time, that's what the nature of this show is. So you do have to be a quick study. And so this is what we're talking about when we tell you guys, like, you have to be able to bang out these auditions quickly. You're not going to get extra time to dissect these scenes and do all this stuff that you think you're going to be able to do, okay? At this level, you have to turn things around quickly, which means you really should be prepared before you go out and seek representation. The number one issue is you guys want to be submitted to these commercials and these TV shows and these feature films so badly that you neglect taking the time to really hone this particular special skill. Self tapes are on the rise. The majority of auditions that we receive now are self tapes. Casting can see a lot more people via tape than they can in person. So there's a lot more opportunities that are available as well when you have a tape. So you really do need to take the time to learn how to master the self tape. Okay, so let's read from the top to bottom. All tapes and sides must remain confidential. No public posts, links needed to be password protected. Bam, let's pause right here. So here's what happened. I had clients end up sending me the tapes into the casting site, but then they also ended up sending me password protected Vimeo links because they misunderstood what they were saying. So here's what it's saying. Sometimes we use YouTube to send tapes to our reps or even casting. As a result, typically they want that tape to remain confidential. So they ask for it to be password protected or unlisted if you're dealing with YouTube. Okay? In this particular instance, it did not mean they wanted you to send links with a password protection. They were just saying if you use it, like for instance with me, when I have a client who cannot figure out compression, meaning they don't know how to make that file smaller, because some of you guys shoot with cameras that are on RAW and then your 30-second self tape is a gigabyte and it should not be that large. And so what happens is I need you guys to compress it so that you can get it to me, right? Because email only allows you to send up to 20 megabytes until it'll reject it, or if you have Gmail, it'll say, hey, it needs to go into Google Drive. Okay? And so YouTube is what I call the poor man's compression. YouTube compresses videos, obviously because of server space. You guys have to understand that these videos take up space on a computer. It's no different from your computer when you have a buttload of photos and videos on it. You only have a certain amount of space on your hard drive. So that's what they have to do. But you also have to understand a thing called bandwidth. Okay? Bandwidth is speed, basically. Okay? Um, and we'll also say preview speed. So think about how when you have certain internet providers and you're using a streaming site or a streaming service, sometimes your video does what's called buffering, right? Buffering means is it's pausing the playback of the video so that it can pre-download maybe 20 more seconds of the video so that you can play seamlessly without it constantly pausing the buffer, pausing the buffer, pausing the buffer. And so your bandwidth, I don't even know if I spelled bandwidth right today. That might be it. Your bandwidth um, contributes to that as well, okay? And your internet provider. And some people have tips and tricks, which I'll briefly mention, but you'll have to figure it out for yourself, where they'll call their internet provider every once in a while and ask for a new IP. So here's something that you do need to know. ISPs, okay? Internet Service Providers. That's what the acronym is. Internet service providers, you know, have to create some level of efficiency to deal with the strain on their servers from having X million customers, on their servers, on their fiber optic lines running. Okay. And so, as a consumer, when you don't have a dedicated line, meaning you're paying top dollar for a line that only you use, okay, when you're out in Gen Pop, you guys are going to get herded like sheep. Okay. And so we can use Netflix and Hulu for an example. When you're a regular consumer, what'll happen is when you go to Hulu or Netflix, the internet service provider will route you all down the same highway going to that site. So that way they've got a flow of their traffic. And so when that happens, that's where sometimes you get those error messages on Netflix and Hulu, or you're getting slow speed. And so there are some people who are very astute that know how to flush their IP address, get a new one, and then some people even know how to do redirects so that you're going on a different path than everybody else so that you do have better bandwidth and you have less buffering. Okay? If that didn't make sense, don't worry about it. It has nothing to do with acting. I'm just a nerd that used to do tech. Okay. So now that we have all that out of the way, long and the short is when they said it needed to be password protected, they were talking about public posts because they know that sometimes we use YouTube or Vimeo to get our tapes to our reps and then we download from there. But I don't tend to use that. If somebody's really struggling, then I'll tell them, put it on YouTube, send me the link, and then from there I can download from YouTube. And if it's still too big, I can then compress using my software and already have a preset set for your self tapes so that they come in ideally under 20 megabytes so that if I need to email something to casting, I can email that file. It's still of decent quality because you have to understand that when you compress something, the quality diminishes. Okay? So, compression diminishes the overall quality of a video and audio, any file. Okay, diminishes it. Oh, keyboard, you hate me. Okay. And so there are times where we can compress and it might get a little bit grainy, yada yada yada. So typically you guys will shoot in high def and then I'll compress down to what we need. With this particular one, which now I'm realizing it's 8 a.m., I gotta see what's going on and send more tapes because we have a 10 a.m. deadline and I have like 20 guys. You really just need to be helping out your reps by sending files that are already compressed. Okay, if you don't know how to do it, I will do it for $5. Okay, like it is not that hard to do. There are so many free resources. I have software because I'm also an editor among several other things. So if you need to compress something, send it to me and then send me $5. All right, moving on to the next part. So the tapes need to be uploaded on or before the deadline. We'll just take out Monday so people don't freak out. Okay, and please leave time to upload before the cutoff. Here we go. Actors are notorious for being procrastinators. Anybody want to dispute that? Didn't think so. Especially when dealing with my roster. One of my clients, every time I send a self tape, can I get extra time? No, you can't get extra time. Well, when is it due? You have the due date in the EcoCast. Like, you guys need to learn how to pause for a second and read everything from top to bottom. I know you guys get excited when you get auditions. I can tell because even last night I had a text message exchange with one of my clients where he's like, "Oh, yeah, I missed all those instructions. I just went straight to the sides and started doing the work." And that's where you guys are disqualifying yourself. I wish I had time to go find the tweet, but I'll paraphrase this. Lori Records. If you're not following Lori Records on Twitter, you need to follow her. Okay? She is a keyboard. She is a commercial casting director, but she hands out gems. Gems. Let me say it again. Gems on exactly what you guys need to be doing when you're going into the room or preparing your self tapes. Okay, and she even said that so many actors don't follow directions that now she pretty much brings in only people who do on their tapes. So she's like, you want to beat out everybody else? Follow my directions exactly to a T. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about the way they're telling you to shoot the thing, the way they're telling you to slate, the way they're telling you to label your files. I get a lot of files that come in like this. That was supposed to be a 4. Let me do caps lock. And it'll come in just like that. And that's your file name .mov. I assume that you just don't know how to set up your camera to record things with your name, at least, and then a file number afterward. And so typically, most of the time, your files need to be labeled like this: first name, last name, and let me crunch these together because you have to understand some you can't have spaces. Last name, character, and then it could be scene and take. It just depends. Okay, and then dot whatever it is, MOV, MP4, yada yada yada. Okay, MP4 is going to be more compressed than an MOV. MOV is typically a QuickTime file. So you also need to learn file extension types. Okay, sometimes your phone does, I believe, an M4V, and sometimes, oh, I'm in caps, I can't open that. Okay, so you got to be careful. Typically, you should be using MOV or MP4. So have a go to compression site saved in your bookmarks. Okay, there are so many free sites. I don't have time to show you because I left all my windows open, so I can't like clean that up really quickly and show you. But you've got to do this research and figure all this out. Okay, we're not responsible for this. But what I am worried about is when, I know what casting's doing, saying the way they did the things and making them in bold, you guys aren't following the directions and you really don't care, and then you're expecting us to turn in your piss poor tape. And then you're also not investing in lighting equipment. So let's just keep going. Okay, self-tape setup. If you are going to tape at home, which the majority of you are not well equipped to do, which means I highly recommend going to a self-taping facility. I am like 2 more bad self-tapes away from just opening one up in my office because it's ridiculous. Okay, if you don't know what you're doing, go to a self-taping facility. Stop trying to use fluorescent. Oh, I might have spelled that right. Fluorescent lighting in your apartment. Not cool. Not cool, bro. You look bad. Okay? You look bad. And some of you have very defined features in your face. So that light gives you what we call dead man shadows. And by we, I mean me. I just made that up right now. But what I'm saying is it'll make you look like a ghoul. Okay? the light will hit those things and you'll have like black circles under your eyes. You'll have, black running across your face. So you guys really need to be cognizant of your self-tape lighting. So, soft boxes. Okay? What are soft boxes? Let me scroll down so you can see. Soft boxes, okay? Soft lights. You have hard lights and you have soft lights. And I feel like you guys should know this because I feel like if you're going to a reputable university, you probably, and you majored in theater, you probably all had a stage manager lighting design class. So I feel like you guys know the difference between a hard spotlight and, a soft light. And if you don't, then you at least know how to use the gobies, I believe is what they're called, the gobies, go-betweens, to, well, those cast patterns, but you get what I'm saying. You know how to use gels. Yeah, I think a goby could soften you up too. I'm pretty certain they probably make one. You should know how to use mesh screens, there we go, screens to take a hard light and turn it into a softer light. The softer the light source, the closer you can be to it, and it also diminishes wrinkles. Okay, there is a lighting kit. Let me see. There's a light that Mo Richardson makes, and when I was learning set lighting, I'm gonna draw you a little diagram using my keyboard. It's a light that looks like that where it has 9 of them, and it could be more, it could be 12. And each light behind it has a switch, so you can turn it on and off. And my lighting instructor, who's in the IATSE union, said that their nickname for it is called the bag light. Okay. Now, hey, it's not PC, okay, but here's what it's for. It's for older people, okay. I won't just say women as well, because I'm sure there's some dudes who do it too. It's for older people, who haven't had plastic surgery basically, or have, and things are still drooping a little bit and they want to look more youthful, to, create that nice soft light. You may also know it from, what is that annoying woman's name? Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace. Okay? If you ever watched her show toward the end, like of as the seasons progressed, you started to notice she had this soft frost effect on her. Frost effect, where it was like you thought maybe your glasses were dirty or something was wrong with your eyes. That was their way of trying to make her, not look like what she really looks like, okay, in person. And so you have different effects and things that you can do with the lighting. Most of you are youthful enough to where you don't need to worry about the bag light or the frost effect, but what you do need to do is worry about the soft lights. Okay? Alright, so that's enough of that. Hopefully you've been paying attention. I don't think I need to recap. So now we can move on, which means I can get rid of all of this. You can always pause the video. Okay, so let's go back to where we are. There cannot be extensions. Stop procrastinating. You're supposed to be ready at a moment's notice. Self-tape audition is no different from an audition in person. You gotta start learning that copy and get her done. Okay? Alright, so this is where we're gonna have the semantics. And what I feel like what they meant was, what he meant to put at, he or she meant to put after this was, etc. Okay? This is what I feel was missing when they said this. You have to understand that they were under a time crunch. They were casting for the role and they still hadn't found what they were looking for. And so, as such, they now put it out to Gen Pop and they're rushing because now they've got to watch a ridiculous amount of tapes today so that they can film tomorrow. Okay? And so they said, please send the scenes individually, scene 1, scene 2, slate. And they ended it there. But if you notice, what they did was is they broke out all of these as their own headers in bold, which to me is significant. So let me highlight, let me use colors, okay, and then we'll get into it some more. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing they did was they gave you the taping. So let's go isolate that. So they say, please make sure the camera is steady, use a tripod if possible. Be sure your face is well lit. We need to be able to see you. Stop using fluorescent lights at your house. Go invest in a soft box kit, 3-point lighting setup. I talked about that on Danny's show when I was on Black Hollywood Online inside the Black Actor Studio. Keep the background simple, nothing distracting. Okay, we talked about Killian's Gray. Please look at the person with whom you're reading like in a real audition. You need to have a reader. So let's go ahead and address this elephant in the room. Okay, a lot of you have been doing the digital reader where you either pre-record your voice or someone else's voice. It's a great way to do things when you're on the fly, but I do not recommend this. I don't recommend this for television. I recommend this for independent feature films that you got off backstage. I don't recommend this for things that your agent got you. Okay? And you're getting some casting directors now that are putting in their notes. You need to have a reader. And they even said in parentheses, that there's no even debating this. They said, like in a real audition, when you go in for a real audition in person, what do you have there? A human being reading the other lines, right? So I think you guys really need to stop doing this. Don't do it, okay? And start getting a reader. And you've got tons of actor friends. My roster, we have our own way of communicating with one another. So you really have no excuses for not having access to a reader at this point, especially since you've embarked on this level of your career. It is mandatory and required. I almost feel like I need to make it a part of my checklist when I'm determining who I'm going to bring into the agency at this point because it is so vital and so essential to the process. Okay, so then we have the do not look straight into the camera during scenes. So let's dissect this. Scenes. This does not. Oh, really? Okay. This does not include your slate. Does not include your slate. Okay? Your slate is when you look into the camera. Okay? All right? Then they said your reader should be behind and next to the camera, not in front. So you already know that you're either looking camera left or camera right, but there's no scenario where we're shooting over the shoulder of a reader. Okay? Please review your tape before submitting. Yes, please take a look at what you've done. I catch a lot of things because you guys just go and just upload it, and I'm like, okay, so once, sometimes they don't load, they don't play, all kinds of things. Make sure the video and audio are clear. Make sure that you're easy to understand. Make sure that your video isn't overly compressed to where it's grainy and you know how it looks like you have that static, something dancing across the screen. That can be low light, but can also be too low of a compression. Okay, compression, also deals with what is called a bit rate. Here you go again, nerd alert. Bit rate. Okay, the bit rate, paraphrasing, is the bits per second used in compiling a video. Okay. Okay. I'm tired. We're not even done. All right. And so when you have really low bit rates, you can have a choppy video. There, done. All right. Behind the camera, review your tape. Okay. Lesson done. So now, let's go. Now that we've got the basics of taping, let's go take a look at what they've done line by line. So they did slate as its header, scenes as a header, and talking as a header. So let's talk about this project. This project has 2 scenes, okay? Plus they wanted a slate, and then what we're debating right now, which is talking. Personally, I feel, and considering the evidence is as follows for me, so I'm going to go ahead and state my case. You have slate, then you have scenes, and then you have talking. They've labeled it talking. It's no different from a personality slate, personality reel, okay, where they're saying, hey, let us get to know you for a minute and just tell us about yourself. And that's where you guys really need to work on this, because some of y'all struggle. you know what I'm saying, and talking about yourself and selling yourself. So it's no different than learning a monologue. What you need to do is write out something about yourself, memorize that sucker so that you can deliver it like a pro. But I'm jumping ahead. Okay. So to me, I've got one, two, three different points to deal with. Okay. Now, let's start with the slate. To me, once again, my position is the slate should have been its own video. I had clients who combined the slate and the talking, and I don't think they should have done that. Is it the end of the world? No, maybe, maybe not. It all depends on casting. But based on the way they broke down their instructions, talking was not under slate. If they had put down here, please also include, and then put it under there, then yeah, I think it would be attached to the file called slate, which is where they have scene 1, 2, and slate. I feel as though they left off etc., aka talking. So when I got done with emailing my clients, I told them I should have 5 tapes total. But we can get into the semantics of that with the scenes. Because what they want is they wanted you to do each scene twice. So we had 2 scenes and they wanted you to make different choices, meaning they wanted something completely different than what you did on take 1. A lot of you think that smiling more in a take is different. No, you need to be pulling out a completely different person. Okay, so what do they mean when they say, please make different choices? Be someone else. That's what you need to do. Okay, and so because of that, I feel as though you should have 2 tapes per scene. Okay, so you should have had scene 1, take 1, and then you should have had scene 1, take 2. And that's what I am getting based on how they wrote this out and typically, how you want to do it. Okay? That makes it easier for casting because let's be honest, they may or may not have time to watch your whole tape. They will say, we will review everything, which means they will. They will go in, they will open up a tape, and then they will start to press play. And they will know within 5 seconds or less as to whether or not they should keep watching. You either have it on tape or you don't have it on tape. It's no different from when you walk into the room. You either have it or you don't. And so you guys really need to spend more time working on your taping of your performances in addition to you working with your acting teachers with your or you're with your coaches on your performance technique. I think that in the future more schools are going to start creating a class for self tapes. If they didn't, I highly recommend it right now because this is where you guys are failing is with your tapes. Okay? Now, when it comes to feedback, you're not going to get feedback. So those days of feedback are over. Just accept it because I'm so tired of going through it. I get people, well, I'm not getting any feedback. Well, your feedback is they didn't call you back in. There you go. Okay? If you didn't get a call back, there's your feedback. You weren't good enough. Done. All right. So, our slate. They want you to begin with a wide shot. Okay? A wide shot. And they want it to be full body, head to toe. Now, these particular instructions didn't talk about the horizontal versus the vertical. Okay? Horizontal meaning shooting with your phone, if you guys are using your phone essentially, because cameras automatically shoot horizontally. Okay? So that's widescreen. Like the way you see movies. Okay? The rectangles laying off to the side. Horizontal. But a lot of you film with your phones and you end up filming in vertical, meaning you're holding that phone straight up. And what that does is that constricts the amount of space. So let me see if I can draw a square. Let me see, we'll try this. And that. Okay? That is widescreen to me. That is widescreen to me. Okay? That's not a wide shot, but that's widescreen. The dimensions of widescreen, which I believe are 16 by 9 at this point. And let's do vertical, which is literally boop, boop. Okay, and ooh, 4 by 3. I think that's what it is. Whatever, the aspect ratios might be off, brain fried. Um, but those are the differences. Okay, so there's a big difference between being able to see you on widescreen versus being able to see you in 4 by 3 vertical. If you have to go with 4 by 3 originally, it was, the very square television sets. And then we switched to a rectangle, right? All the flat screens got wide. And so that, then became a premium thing of like, oh wow, look at this wide screen. You can see more of the picture, more of the movie, because movies always shot in that 16 by 9. And if you notice for TV shows, in order to fit certain things in the frame, they had to physically slide the image over sometimes. You can see it in some of the older movies when a character walks into the scene and all of a sudden the tape does this weird shift to the right. And so that's what that was. Okay. So here we go. So I had sent my clients an image card to use. If you were a client watching this, you are only to use that image card when casting has not given you explicit instructions on how to do this. Okay? Common sense, people. So if casting says use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper to slate, that means you either need to print out something that looks nice and neat and clean, or you need to write out something that looks nice and neat and clean. And they're saying print your name, print your height, tell us where you are physically based, and then print your agency and manager with their phone and email. You have to understand that sometimes they may not have our phone and email on file, and a lot of times they defer to IMDb. And so a lot of agencies have a generic info at agency because you guys get a hold of our emails and fill our inbox with your nonsense, okay? Your pitches. And so, even myself, I have an info out there so that I am not bothered because I'm not checking that box. So, if your agent gave you the email that you should use for your slates, or you know your agent's email, that's what you should be putting on your slate so that they can get a hold of them without having to go to IMDb or go on Global and look up everything. You need to be a good helper with your slates. All right? Let me erase my widescreen stuff so we can go to the next bullet point. It says, please say your name, height, and the agency that represents you. So we'll break this up. This is what they told you to write on your paper. Paper. This is what you're going to say. Say. Okay? So when you're holding up this paper, they're able to see everything. And then at the same time, you're saying your name, your height, and the agency you are with. Now, let's talk about the frame up. So first off, they said begin with a wide shot. So here's what you should do. Begin with the wide shot. A wide shot is the full body shot. Some of you don't have camcorders that can zoom in and out, so what you guys end up doing is called a tilt down. You'll start at the top and you'll pan and tilt your way down to your feet. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but I would say if you're going to, get these taped professionally, they have camcorders so they can zoom out. If you're taping it at your house using your cell phone, you really need to invest in a cheap camcorder, okay? So that you can just zoom out and show your whole body, okay? Then you can cut in closer with a medium shot or zoom in, okay? But you can cut in post. If you have the ability to do simple editing, you can cut. So you zoom in to a medium shot. A medium shot can pretty much be, let's say, the nipple line up, okay? Nipple line up. Zoom into that. Actually, we won't even say medium. No, that's a medium close. Let's do this. Medium shot. We'll say abdomen up. Okay? And so you're holding that piece of paper while saying the stuff that's in green. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean this is what it is for everything and everyone. There have been times where we've gotten instructions with the slate where they want you to say where you're based as well. They want you to say that you don't have any conflicts. You know, they want you to say whether or not you're okay with nudity or heights or water or, stuff like that. So you need to follow those directions, but generally, your slate is, hi, I'm so and so, I'm with the Jackson Agency. Well, actually, don't say that. Your agency. Don't run around saying me, especially if you can't act. Please. This reminds me of this guy now. He's got a clip up and he's tying himself to me, and I'm not happy about it. He's not a client. Okay. All right. So that's what needs to happen. Medium shot. When you're holding that piece of paper, we need to be able to read what's on the piece of paper, because notice what you didn't say out loud. You didn't say out loud the agency's phone number and email, right? Because they just wanted you to say your name, your height, and your agency. So they need to be able to read what's on the paper. So go back and review magenta. All right. Okay. Slate. Done. Back to the scenes. All right. So now you've got your scenes to tape. You're off script. Be off script. The end. End of debate. End of discussion. I'm so sick of you guys trying to just read a page and turning in a tape and making excuses. I'm not turning that in. No one should be turning that in. And if you sneak that in on me, I'm going to be very, very upset. And then I'm most likely going to drop you. You need to be off script, especially with this show. This show requires you to be a quick study. If you don't know how to memorize things quickly, then you don't need to have representation. The end. Whether it's a soap opera or just a drama, you need to be able to adapt to changes to the script and rememorize those lines quickly so that when they yell action, you are not costing them money, so that you are not wasting everyone's time. Okay? So you need to be off script. Memorize that sucker. You hold it in your hand in case some sort of brain fart happens while you're auditioning, so you can glance down while the reader is speaking and know what your next line is. But we really shouldn't see that script in the frame at all. And so a lot of you don't know how to do that technique. Lucy Boyer gave me a great technique when we went to a class together, and she said, no matter what, always have that first line at a minimum memorized, so that as soon as you start talking, you have your head up and you're looking directly at that reader. Then after that, if you get lost or whatever, you can start looking down, blah, blah, blah. But you really need to have this stuff memorized. The end. Okay? All right. So let's go back to their directions. Please do each scene twice. So we've already ascertained that we have scene one and scene two. Okay? Please do each scene twice. And then they say, please make different choices in each take. And so, like I said, that means be someone else. Pull out two different characters, because sometimes your scene analysis can be wrong, or you have a certain style of doing things. And so you can do it in your style and then do it in the style that you figure it should be done. How do you learn the style? Watch the show. You cannot go out for these established shows and not binge watch. Binge. Binge watch at least 3 episodes. You have to watch these shows that you're auditioning for ahead of time so you know what the style and the pacing is. So that way your scene analysis is more in tune with what the current style of the show is. A lot of you don't go watch episodes. You just go tape it, and then you're, oh yeah, I'm putting in a tape, I'm doing work, and you just wasted an opportunity. That had you taken the time to watch a couple of episodes to get a feel for the show, if it's not already a show that you watch, you know what I'm saying, you would know, exactly how to attack something. Okay? So again, I feel as though you should have 2 tapes per scene. We should have uploaded a total of 5 tapes. Okay? We should have had 4 tapes uploaded. 2 for scene 1, 2 for scene 2, and properly labeled. Because that way casting can just go click, watch scene 1, take 1, then click, watch scene one, take two. And then they can make notes as to which was the better scene and also, figure out whether or not they even want to bring you in. Okay. All right, moving on. Talking. As you can see, once again, talking was not included under Slate, so I feel that talking should have been its own tape. Include a 1 to 2 minute medium close up of you talking to camera. Okay, if you don't know what these shots are, Google them. There's literally an image where somebody put together samples of shots. I actually included it in a memorandum to my clients that they refused to read. Clearly, they refused to read. They hate me, so it's great. You want to know how to frame up certain things. Now, I did have a conversation. Um, Gosh, who was I talking to last night? It was something industry related. It was a great conversation. Oh, I was talking to Wendy. There we go. And I was telling her about how, I've had some clients that shoot with this like 3 feet of headroom, right? And it's because a casting director at, one of the workshops they were at told them, because people were like, well, how do you frame up? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? And so a casting director brilliantly summed this up in a way that hopefully you guys can understand. And they said, you know what, just shoot with like 3 feet of headroom above your head. What that does is it places you in a situation where you're literally filming from maybe 3 inches of your arm and shoulder up. So it's kind of the perfect medium close up, actually. It's exactly what the medium close up needs to be. And I was like, that's absolutely brilliant because that casting director learned you can't just say medium close up because you guys would be like, huh, that doesn't compute. And then what do? You go and just put your whole face in the frame. And that's like a close up. And in some ways, it can be an extreme close up because we're seeing parts of you that we didn't need to see. Okay? Now, tell us about yourself, hobbies, interests, and talk briefly about the character and how you relate to him, what you like, what you don't like. This is their way of figuring out your personality on tape because they're out of time. They don't have a lot of time because this thing's on a quick turnaround and they didn't find what they needed, so they had to open it up to Gen Pop. And so this is what I call a personality slate. Okay? This allows you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your hobbies, your interests, what motivates you. Okay? Then they want you to talk about the character. What they're trying to ascertain with this is, do you even understand this character? Okay? And some of you guys struggle with stuff like this. And then they're saying, talk about the character briefly, how you relate to him. So you have to understand your character. And so this is beyond scene analysis. This is character analysis. And this is why I tell so many of you that you need to start writing your own material because a writer truly understands character. Okay, I have to go now. I have to go turn in some more tapes. Hopefully, this was of help to you, and if not, that's okay.